Hello, hello. Another BoP podcast, another Arsenal match to review, and it's your boy George V underscore AFC back again with another hosting job, something we haven't done in a little while. And I'm back here with the boys. So we've got Chris. How you doing, mate?
I'm chilling, man. How you doing?
Good, good. I had a fun night last night. So the boys are having a little laugh off camera about my expenditures, my little adventures yesterday. So it'll be interesting. I get to host today. So yeah, all good, mate. How about you, Z? How are you doing?
Yeah, no, all good. It's my birthday today, so just been, I don't know,
You
celebrating it.
stole the words out of my mouth. I was just gonna say we gotta wish you a huge happy birthday, mate. How old are you right now?
Oh, I'm 24, man. Getting old.
That's a fun age, man.
Getting
That's
old,
a fun
yeah.
age. Well, happy birthday, my guy. All the BoP
No,
guys here and
thank
all the
you.
listeners too. When you guys do listen to this, tomorrow or today, make sure that you wish him a big happy birthday.
Thank you, man.
All right, and we also got a special guest today. Kern is going to be maybe joining us in and out. He's got a little bit of stuff that he has to handle, so he might pop in and out. But we've got a guest to help you, a good friend of ours. Naif, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi guys, my name is Naif, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're gonna get through really quickly right to the match. So Burnley offered a chance for us to build momentum, offered us a chance to get another look at this team breaking down a slightly different type of opponent to Norwich, who a similarly poor inferior squad. But I'd argue that Burnley, with their press and Sean Dice, I think they offered a much stronger test of really many of our weaknesses that plagued us. Namely aerial duels, our ability under pressure. So they offered a lot of questions. Let's start with the lineup. Were there any concerns or queries with the lineup when you saw that it had come out? We'll go to Chris first.
Well, for me, immediately when it came out, a lot of people were like to me, it's a 4-3-3, it's a 4-3-3. We're trying something new versus Burnley. And initially, when even if it was a 4-3-3, I wasn't like scared because, as we highlighted in the preview, Burnley aren't that strong centrally. So us putting less men centrally wouldn't really hinder our chances. But like with the lineup overall, it was weird because I thought Pepe would be dropped and then be like Partey and Lokongo, Partey and Elneny or something like that. But he chose to keep Pepe and all them together. I was very happy that we kept the same back five because obviously there was reports coming out that Leno was going to start one of the next two games and he didn't. So that was good. And yeah, I was happy that Partey and Smith Rowe were back in the starting lineup because obviously we missed them through injuries. But I wasn't scared, but I was intrigued when I first saw it because a lot of people were happy that it was a 4-3-3.
Yeah, I mean this debate between a 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1 is a debate as old as time, really. Us here on BoP, we have such differences. I mean, I'll go to you, Z. I mean, the big comment I know that I kind of made on the timeline is I've tried to make formations of Fugazi. I've tried to tell people It really isn't that serious. What you may think is maybe not the ideal. Sure, we're going to change in game state, but when you saw the lineup, did you think now's the time I get to tell George to shut his mouth? It's going to be a 4-3-3.
It's funny you say that because I saw the formation and I was like, you know what? Because I've already had this discussion with you, George, when I was like, against Norwich, did we play a 4-3-3 towards the end, or did we just stick to the 3-2-5? And you know what? We played 4-3-3 for moments of the game, but then we went back to a 3-2-5. Then I was like, you know what? This debate is probably not going to happen again because I think it's redundant. And then we saw the team against Burnley, and I saw that immediately. I was like, you know what? It's not going to be a 4-3-3. It's going to be a 4-2-3-1 with Odegaard and Partey in the pivot. And I was telling people in the time that it's going to be a 4-2-3-1, and it started out obviously as a 4-2-3-1, and in attack we were interchanging, and we went to a 3-2-5, and then we had a Partey drop into the hole and you had Emil Smith Rowe and Odegaard on the sides, and then you see Partey being the most advanced, and then Odegaard dropping deep as well, and then you end up thinking, you know what, this is probably just the most hybrid formations most hybrid changes I've seen in game in a long time. And at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be writing on Twitter that I'm dropping the towel on this. I'm throwing in the towel. Sorry, I'm not going to be talking about formations ever again because I've just realized it is the most Fugazi
It really is. I've been trying personally on Twitter. Everybody knows if you followed myself, I'm very much, a profiles over experience kind of guy. And I've always said zones over formations. I think we have to get comfortable with fans understanding that we're going to control zones, control different areas of the pitch. And I agree with you, mate. Like, I think we're going to have this 3-2-5 buildup that goes into a 2-3-5. I think that's going to be maybe the most consistent thing you can say. But otherwise, the team is going to have that basic structure, but then it's just going to change depending on game state, depending on where people are going.
Yeah.
Are we receiving a press? Are we not? But some of those basic core principles will probably be the same. I'll go to you, Naif, because I know for us here, we didn't think Pepe would start. And a big reason why, at least personally, I want to speak for myself. I know others were agreeing, but I felt with Burnley, what you're going to get are at times a 4-4-2 press. You're going to have somebody kind of high up on you, Ashley Barnes, Chris Wood. We needed an outlet with technical security in my mind. And I think it was kind of a weird premonition when we really struggled with our frontline technical security in this game. But I was worried this just wasn't the game for Pepe. I was very adamant that I feel he's a very specific player. What did you feel when you saw the lineup with, again, Bukayo at left wing? Are you a fan of that Tierney-Bukayo side? I had some questions, but I guess when the lineup came up, were you worried how efficient we might be in the front line, since that's been a problem for us kind of since the season started, really, and beyond?
No, I kind of mirror the same thoughts as you guys, that essentially I didn't really like how Pepe played against Norwich. Yeah, he got the assists, and generally the stats back him up that he created a bunch of chances, but like when you actually watch the game, like, he had so many loose touches, he really couldn't control the ball. And for most of the game, Brandon Williams had him in his pocket. But to be honest, like, I don't mind Pepe starting as long as it's not at the expense of ESR, Odegaard, or Saka, which happened in the Burnley game. All four of them started, so I didn't really mind that much. And just like you were saying earlier, how this whole formation thing is a fugazi, and there's not really any set formation. There's no 4-2-3-1, no 4-3-3. It's just like everyone like, we're always playing the same shape whenever we're building up or whenever we're attacking. For example, Odegaard, usually he's in the front line, but today, or rather yesterday in the Burnley game, because we didn't have Xhaka available, Arteta played him in that left central mid role, also in order to dictate play from deep, which worked, to be fair. Like, he was pinging those long balls to Tierney on the left that Xhaka would normally do. And obviously Odegaard got us the winning goal. It wasn't because he was playing at LCM. Obviously, it was because he scored a very good free kick. So that's very nice.
Yeah, I mean, look, broadly for myself, I'll have some commentary on it. Look, when I saw the lineup myself, I said, I was very ready. Guys, expect the unexpected. I don't think that we're going to see much different in fundamentals. I've always felt that we're going to do like a 3-2-5 build-up. We talk about this on the channel quite a bit. That goes into maybe a 2-3-5 as we progress up the pitch. Now, a couple things that maybe I noticed in the early moments really was, our center backs and receiving. Our press really, it stems with Ramsdale, and we'll have a special segment for him because he deserves his own segment and about talking to him. But I felt broadly when we were looking at building up, we actually had this like 2-1 structure where our center backs would split, and then you'd have Partey that would kind of drop in the hole. And what would happen is we would be very asymmetrical. And so what that just means, like, I think on one side we would overload, and, you'd have Odegaard come to drop in to help out. But really you could see that 3-2-5 structure with Odegaard coming in that left center mid role. And then when we were progressed up the pitch, he went into that 10. And I actually saw this more of a box formation where we really went to that 2-3-5. And Odegaard was in places where he really liked. But in build-up, it was very clear to me that he was helping out, dropping out in the pivot. But Partey was the one that, was really dictating things at the beginning. I felt the first half was a cagey one. I don't know if anybody else felt similar, but for me, I felt that it was a very cagey but controlled performance. I think people may have looked at that and were uncomfortable at the level of Burnley possession, but even their dominance in the pitch, which I wasn't surprised with, because I think, Chris, you made the point in the pre-match that, you really rate Sean Dyche, and so do I, in terms of their press, which was very, very good. But the one thing that I noticed was, and I want to highlight, in the reverse fixture last year, we had a very common problem where Xhaka would be that one dictating play from deep, and we conceded off of it very, very early with Leno. What do you guys feel was the difference for us building out so efficiently from the back, where maybe the front line didn't have the technical security, but from the back, we definitely seem to have a difference compared to even last year, where, I think there was a still where I saw kind of on Twitter where Xhaka receives and that, he's caught kind of in the box last year. Partey was receiving that same spot with the same pressure, by the way, so frequently, and the effortlessness of how he got out of there. Is that a system problem or is that quality? Chris, I'll go to you first.
For me, it's definitely quality, because the players in general, like Gabriel, Tierney, Partey, the same players that played against Burnley last year, and it was just a different level of calmness with Ramsdale there instead of Leno. When they got like that exact still image, obviously we conceded from Xhaka passing it and hitting what's his name, Chris Wood, and bouncing in. But I just think the technical security in our build-up, as I said in the preview, would help us bypass their press, because obviously they're always pressing that 4-4-2, and for the quality they have in their team, Burnley are very, very good at what they do. But I think that the quality that we have now in our build-up with Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, Ramsdale, Tierney, Partey, I'm just so comfortable right now with our build-up and them as a right now back six operating together, because I really don't think them same mistakes will come. What about you guys?
To be fair, what I kind of like noticed was basically what I decided to do was I watched the game twice and I tried to compare the lineup from last season to this season, and we had David Luiz and Pablo Mari at the back last season compared to this season where we had Gabriel and Ben White. And immediately, if you look at where Xhaka made that mistake last season and compared to the many times where Partey received the ball in that hole, you could see that our centre backs were a lot wider compared to where David Luiz and Mario. And I think it could be a possible the possible reason could be because they didn't really trust Leno enough to be that wide, and they just compressed and stayed into well, basically they were more narrow. Whereas now Ramsdale is there, the centre backs are a lot more confident that the ball will arrive there. So they've already positioned themselves a lot wider, and obviously you can trust someone like Thomas Partey to receive the ball in that hole and for him to not start pinging it onto one of the wider centre backs like Gabriel or Ben White. So that was the main difference I saw, and on top of that, the main other difference was the fact that we were a lot higher up the pitch the entire time, and that's something that we weren't really doing against them Burnley last season. And it seemed like once we beat them in transition, that was it. And once the goal that we conceded by ourselves in that last game, it seemed like once Burnley sat back, that was it. We had no other answer and that was the biggest difference for us, compared to last season versus this season. It's just the personnel on the pitch that allows us to be a lot more expandable and just try a lot more different things. I think we personally played a lot better last season compared to this season, but because of the personnel on the pitch, we ended up getting the better result, and I think that's what better players end up getting you anyways. So. Yeah, I don't know what you think about that, George.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one for me because I felt it was a game of two halves where we ended up. I told on Twitter where I felt it was a controlled first half that disintegrated into a good fight, and I think the issues that I had where while we had a good structure to begin with, I just think that the technical security in the front line was just horrific across the board, where we just wasted so many chances, so many awesome opportunities to really put people on goal. I look at, not to pick on him, but Nicolas Pepe, who had Oba, who could have sealed it, after our goal. I think there were issues, even Aubameyang sending Pepe through, kind of in the middle after some good interplay. Like we just didn't have, we were close, but no cigar was kind of the biggest impact that I really saw there. And I don't know if that, I don't want to be conspiracy theories in terms of going into the pitch. Is that pitch? could be something. I think Ben White made mention of that.
I know.
Yeah.
But I felt as though in general what you got was, I was kind of with you, Z, where I felt that last year I think we gave a better account of ourselves consistently over 90 minutes. But I think I saw a little bit of a better peak performance in the first of us beating the press. So it was a mixed bag for me in that sense. But I think it's a really good transition, because I think the big difference to why, maybe we saw that better peak difference, but maybe it kind of collapsed kind of in the final third, was really the difference of Ramsdale and, Partey as our progression. I really want to highlight that as our next segment, and maybe really talk about Ramsdale, about what you guys felt he offered in the game. Because, look, we did our analysis on BoP here, and, we got slaughtered for basically just supporting the club. And, we kind of told everybody, look, Ramsdale's very accomplished claiming crosses. I believe, yesterday we faced something like 30 balls into the box, 40. But 40?
Wow.
And I think only 9 reached their target, 5 of which were claimed by Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, it was clearly a test of, swinging balls in the box, something we historically haven't done well on. And then you look at kind of the distribution that's been highlighted, that, I think we can put that weird trope to bed, that he was really bad with his feet. He's excellent with the ball to feet. The amount of times he had an early release to Emile Smith-Rowe, to, even, Oba on the sideline, clipped ball wides. The amount of times he just simply beat the press and played the ball to Partey quick. That's not what Leno was doing when Xhaka was put in the position. Xhaka did a really poor ball that time in the reverse fixture, but, Leno doesn't help him out. And I guess I'll go to Naif first. Like, what was your opinion on Aaron Ramsdale and, his impact on the game?
I found Ramsdale was excellent, and he was rightfully the man of the match. Regarding that still you said of, like, comparing this game to the game we played against Burnley last season, where it was Partey instead of Xhaka and picking up the ball from Ramsdale. One interesting thing is that in that same still, like, you can see Ramsdale pointing and shouting at Partey, telling him that he has a man on and telling him to play the ball quickly. Whilst last season, Leno, when he was playing the ball to Xhaka, he basically just, here, have it. It's your problem now. He didn't try communicating like, oh, you have a man on. And a very underrated aspect of Ramsdale's game is that he knows when to play it short and when to play it long. So Ramsdale doesn't always play it short.
Yeah, he has a lot of variability in his passing, and it helps our players, especially in the build-up, when it makes us more unpredictable. Because sometimes you go long, sometimes you go short. Because against Brentford, we had the issue where the Brentford players really clocked on early that if they get close to Leno, he's gonna go long, regardless of how close they get. So they just realized, so if we press him, he's gonna go long. But with the variability that Ramsdale gives you, where sometimes he'll just pass it short centrally into Odegaard, like we saw against West Brom, or he'd bypass the striker and loft it into Pepe. So that variability helps. But yeah, for me, on the Ramsdale thing, I think there was a point in the game where it looked like our players were very nervous and the passing was becoming very poor. Even Ben White made a very poor pass to Ramsdale. If the pitch may have got involved, but all in all, it was still a poor pass, and Ramsdale made a great tackle that on another day maybe would have come out as a pen. And I think Ramsdale just kept us flowing in that time, because he was claiming a lot of crosses at that point in the game. He just kept us calm and confident. He was keeping the ball a bit longer just to give us more time to relax. And I think the aspect of him taking more time and potentially showing the rest of his team that there's time for you to take, and calming us down is a very big thing, because our whole back line and whole team, in fact, was much more calm and collected with Ramsdale than we would have seen in other games in the past, because we do tend to get flustered, and when we do get flustered, we tend to concede. And against probably the best aerial team in the league, we did very, very well aerially, which is something we've been critiqued of for years and years. But yeah, I think his calmness and communication and how commanding he was yesterday really helped us when our technical security was the poorest I've seen in a very long time.
I think the big for me, I don't want to steal words, but I think it was tempo control. So when I look at it, and when you're having so many kind of crosses into the box and into the mixer, right? What that does, right, is it creates panic, particularly with Burnley, who create a 4-4-2 press. They have Barnes and Wood that are on you immediately, and if you can get through, there's space in the center. We kind of highlighted this, in the pre-match, but what Ramsdale did, look, he's got that excellent clip ball wide. We know that can happen on keepers, and really that quick release is really the key to beating any kind of press like that, who really rush you up the pitch. But the key passes for me were really into Odegaard and Emile Smith-Rowe. There's some beautiful clip balls right into the center that he releases early, and that's what can allow us to beat the press when you had kind of us under pressure with Barnes, Wood. Verda also came in later, and he applied very similar pressure. And really, you talked about Ben White there, where I think he's unlucky because you can see the ball drag. If I'm really being honest with you, it was very odd that I felt Ben White, won all of his aerial duels, and it's just oddly the time on the ball was really his worst. And while I think he probably was our worst player on the pitch, it was just very uncharacteristic. And I sympathize with him. I don't think it's anything worrying long term, because that's his real superpower really is his ability on the ball. But I just found it very ironic that we had the smashing of narrative where his struggling off the ball wasn't the issue, was on the ball issues. And I think Ramsdale was a big part for allowing us not to capitulate when we had a big player in the spine struggling. So just to speak to your point, Chris, I think when you're under pressure, you're right. We have a tendency to capitulate, but it's because I feel that nervous energy transmits to across the spine. And we finally had players in this game why we didn't capitulate, but maybe we did in the first 3 games. Was ahead of the ball, you had Thomas Partey, who was an outlet. And behind the ball of that pressure, who was struggling, you got Aaron Ramsdale. So you've got options ahead and behind you that are secure in possession, talkative, and give you an out when you're struggling. I think that's very, very important when we talk about, the effect of a spine. When I sat here and I said to caution everybody on context, I think your ability to ride through phases of a game is very, very important. And a spine gives you that. And a spine allows you to have 1 or 2 players off, 1 or 2 players that, aren't performing their role. But as long as you have other people that will demand the ball consistently and don't hide, I think you end up having a case where you can sacrifice that on the ball quality, where we did have our moments, but I don't think it was the most secure we could have been. And I do think Tomiyasu and Gabriel were imperious at the back. Their 1v1 duels were absolutely immense. In terms of man of the match, I probably give it to Ramsdale for his consistency across the 90 minutes. But individually, you're looking at Tomiyasu, who, by the way, I don't know if you guys looked at the stats, but every single aerial and ground duel he won. There wasn't an aerial and ground duel that he didn't win. We finally, in my opinion, have our Sanya of the 1v1 absolute monster in that defense. And then you combine with Gabriel, who I think was just absolutely, at times, world class. I think he struggled a little bit on the ball, but his defending was impeccable. He latches on to a couple balls that are bouncing in the box. He claims authority. He's always got a header on it. Tomiyasu similar. I'm going to go to Z right now. What do you think Tomiyasu, Gabriel, this new look back line, like what do they give us that, maybe we haven't seen in the last 3 games? Like, why is it that we were able to ride our luck in this game and maybe we couldn't in previous games?
I think, obviously, like the signings, just on the base of the signings alone, we could see the profile that Arteta was looking at, and they were the fact that they were very athletic, aggressive kind of signings. And what Gabriel and what Tomiyasu allows us to be is a lot more aggressive on the pitch, and allows us to be a lot more higher up the pitch as well, which is really important for us, because I feel like a lot of the times teams come to us, come attack at us, and they feel like we're little wimps really, and we can't really win the duels that we should do. And the fact is, someone like Tomiyasu, he basically he's a player that even if you watch him at Bologna, he would win all his duels as well, and he wasn't a defender that he could easily beat, and he's brought that at Arsenal. And Gabriel was the same at Lille. He wasn't a player that you could easily beat, and these are the kind of defenders that we should bring into Arsenal. And I'm so glad that we have them at Arsenal right now, because it just makes us a better team. It's just a shame that the drop off from Tomiyasu and Gabriel is Pablo Mari and Cedric. So, but yeah, no,
Even
I'm
yesterday,
really happy with the signings.
with the on your point where there were certain players that just we have Party and Ramsdale now who, when those players are like scared or flustered, they will demand the ball and stuff like. Our technical security was actually very, very bad yesterday. No, it was actually poorer than usual because like there was only, off the top of my head, only Emil and Oba had 90% pass accuracy, and everyone was like 83% or below. So we really couldn't keep the ball. We really couldn't keep the ball. But like having them back and fit now is very beneficial, and to get through the game with a win, because were you really threatened at any point throughout the game that we were going to concede?
No,
I really was.
no.
I really
Well,
was.
look, you know what I was worried about. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't necessarily worried on individual mistakes, but I was worried on an acute deflection. When you get pressure like they were having, it's not something that I would say benefits our team mentally. So I was worried about a mental lapse. But I feel as though, really, my quick answer to having those those people back is it gives you quality, and quality you just can't beat it for me in terms of system. We saw, in my opinion, the benefit really of this, kind of difference for me between the past 3 games and this game where we were under pressure, make no mistakes about it, right? And, there were issues with the passing. There were issues with the technical progression. I got people on Twitter saying, George, I thought with our spine back, wouldn't we see a lot more efficiency in our progression? So what's the reason that we've got here? I've got my thoughts, but, I want to go to Naif here. What do you think is the reasons why we had some passing problems where, make no mistake about it, I think the first half, our buildup was impeccable on quite a few occasions. It was patient. I don't think it was consistent, but it was absolutely, the buildup was impeccable. I think our composure in the buildup was very, very good, but it didn't translate to the final third. So what do you think are the issues there?
I know this might sound like a cop-out, but I generally think that a main reason why that we struggled to pass the ball during the whole game versus Burnley was because what they usually do is that they don't like to water the pitch, that they can force the players to take the ball long so that they can win the aerial duels and take control of the game, which we saw happen a lot of times. Like every time that Gabriel got the ball, he didn't mess about, he just cleared it. And same thing with Tomiyasu and Tierney. And the only one that was trying to, control the ball during our build-up is what's his name? White. So, and you could really see it like, normally I'd like to rag on our attackers for, they're just not clinical enough, they don't have that final action. Usually I like to rag on them on that, but I feel like today is an exception because it wasn't just Pepe and Oba who are normally not very technically secure, but also Smith Rowe and Saka who are usually very technically secure and know how to hit a final pass. They are also struggling. And even for that Ben White mistake, you said earlier, George, how like towards the end, like right before it hit Ramsdale, the ball started to drag a bit. And obviously, you also mentioned how White after the game said the same thing about how the pitch wasn't really that wet. And normally I'd say like they're just making excuses, but I remember the first time that we played Burnley at Turf Moor under Arteta, back in February 2020, that feels like ages ago. He was complaining about the exact same thing in his like post-match press conference. And I know it sounds like a cop-out, like the grass stopped us from playing our usual game, but it is true.
No, you're not wrong, bro. Because look, if you go watch back the game, and you have that in mind, that the pitch is not watered down, then you look at every single pass that we've made came short, and it almost seemed like the ball wasn't going to move anymore. And that's when you saw Gabriel, when he was making his passes, he was lifting the ball a little bit because he wanted the ball to reach the other player. But when we saw Emil Smith Rowe, he's trying to pass it to someone like Pepe. That ball stopped. That ball stopped midway of the pass, and I think at one point Aubameyang tried to pass it as well, and the ball stopped as well. And I was just like, you know what, this just seems so unusual and so Ben White came out and said what he said, and I was just like, you know what, this confirms everything that I had believed, that Burnley tried to scrutinize the game. They tried to they played dirty tactics on us. And no, Knife, you're right, completely. Like it's not a cop out because I think they do it all the time. But the fact of the matter is, we play on the ball a lot. Like we play on the floor a lot, and it hurts us a lot. So honestly,
well, okay, look, I think we have to talk about. So, is everybody okay with Ramsdale? I think we've covered that quite well. Personally, I think that was the big story of the game, and our back five winning our duels. That's got to be the big story about what we take away from this game. And being confident with a back five gives you the base to really build off of. And I think our efficiency problems. We should have a little bit of a segment on Bukayo Saka because I want to be fair and I want to be objective, where we give this kid praise. And I feel as though, along with Ben, I think Ben was more stark, Hollywood in his errors. But I think Bukayo had probably one of his worst games I've seen for us. And so, for me, what do you guys feel was the problem with Bukayo? And I'll go to Chris first.
For me, like I even said it yesterday, I think it's probably arguably his worst performance he's had in an Arsenal shirt. And he still was like responsible for the set piece that we got. He made a very good run on the ball and got a set piece, but in general, like he got like 79% pass accuracy, so his passing was very poor. His final ball was poor yesterday, and I think at times he was just lost in the game, lost on the left wing, just for like, and I think yesterday may be an indication. Other people say it's not, but for me, it's an indication that he's definitely better on the right wing and more like potent and decisive on the right wing rather than left wing. Left wing, he looks more to create and pass to others and become a secondary on the left wing. But on the right wing, I think he just takes more charge and more decisiveness. So I just think his technical security was very poor yesterday. His passing was poor. His final ball was poor, and he just kind of got lost in the game, to be honest. So I think we need to see him move to right wing to reclaim some form. Because I think long term, and even right now, right wing is still his best position. What do you think, Z?
to be fair, I feel like also it might have an issue where he's obviously played a lot of games for us last season, and he's also played in the Euros, and I think that might have like a massive toll on him as well. We look at Mason Mount today playing for Chelsea; he looked like he was tired as hell as well. So we have to give Saka the benefit of the doubt, and also him not playing his best position, which I think is on the right too. It's probably coming as a detriment to Saka. So sooner or later we might have to see him back at that right wing position if we want to ultimately get the best out of Bukayo. But I think for now, what I would do personally would be leave him out of the firing line and play someone like a Martinelli. Play someone like a Martinelli who also needs games, and try and get Saka fired up for ultimately the next run of fixtures that could come after the international break. Because for me, he just looks completely burned out, really.
So I think, look, there's a little bit of fitness, and I'll go to Naif next. But so the thing is, there's a little bit of fitness. There's no preseason. I can understand that to a certain extent, of course, but Bukayo, for me, when you play him on the left, you get a very different Bukayo. When you play him on the left with the Kieran Tierney, when you play him on the left with an Odegaard, who also is, a left center mid lefty, for me, you've got too many players, and I talk about this, wanting to do the same thing in the same zones. We talk about this on this podcast, and I feel as though we had a clogging of what Odegaard ironically did on the right with Bukayo. And it's because, for me, Odegaard is very left-footed dominant in a sense that when he receives in the left half space, he definitely has, the vision and the awareness. But for me, he's very rigid in his ability to overlap or underlap. He has to receive facing the left-hand side. And I found, for me at least, Bukayo didn't have the greatest technical security receiving back to goal. That has to be said. Critique, of course. But for me, I just felt that his options are limited on the left. When I see Bukayo and he does play on the left, for me, he sees one area of the pitch, whereas I feel on the right, he's far more unpredictable. He can go in and out a lot easier. I think he can do it on the left, make no mistake about it, but it's just, it isn't as natural of the angles for me in terms of opening up. And I find that space clogs when you have so many lefties on the pitch that ultimately want to push and run, want to take the ball and go. And, you've got these ball progressors, in mainly Saka and Odegaard that want to do very similar things in that space. I felt there was an issue there. Naif, do you believe that, we shouldn't be making a decision, Bukayo or Pepe on the right wing, and then maybe Martinelli was the plan on the left? I called for a very similar sub mid-game. I felt we were losing tempo. I felt we were getting under the cosh. I felt that Martinelli's, kind of urgency in the press would be very helpful tools for upping our tempo, but also moving Bukayo to the right was really the solution, I felt, in terms of opening up the unpredictability on that side, because I just felt we were doing the same thing on that side. Did you see that same clogging? Do you see it similarly? Or do you feel that, Bukayo can play on the left and, Pepe's output is enough to limit our best player from last season? What do you feel is our best front line? Or do you disagree? Maybe you don't see it the same way, that Saka was just technically off and he needs some games to get back. Like, what's your explanation for Bukayo's poor game?
I think it's a bit of both, like a bit of everything. Like how he feels a little bit burnt out. He's been basically playing every single game that's available. Even after he had that 3-week break after the Euros, we just immediately threw him back into the team because we're that bad that we have to rely on a 19-year-old to carry us. And obviously, we don't want it to be like that, but unfortunately, that's our case. And like you guys said, that he's much better on the right. And you can see that in the game versus, like, in both the Norwich and the Burnley game. Like, despite being tasked with playing on the left, the reason that we scored our goal against Norwich was when Saka moved to the right and Partey found him in that space. And you could see that the defender, he tried to cut off Saka, but he was able to, like, bully him off the ball and then put Pepe in for that shot that hit the post twice and then, eventually went to Abba and went in. And same thing in the Burnley game where, like, for the free kick that Odegaard scored, Saka was coming in from the left, but he kept moving towards the right and centrally. And he was about to give a very similar ball to Pepe, like the one that he gave versus Norwich, before he got tackled and won us a free kick. So it's amazing that how we have a player like Saka, who even in his worst game, he's able to contribute and give us a vital moment that will actually wins us the game. Because if he doesn't win us that free kick, Odegaard doesn't score it, and obviously the game ends 0-0. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I totally agree with you. I felt that, look, the best moment is when you find him in the right half space. I think consistently, in my opinion. I think there's some times that he drifted to the right, and there were some very dangerous scenarios where he slips in Pepe on the overlap, and, that doesn't happen on the left. He did move a couple times to the right. There was about a 10-minute period where I think ESR and, Saka switched a bit. And I felt we were just far more fluid. I actually don't think it was coincidence that we kind of looked better in that aspect. And I've always felt that with Pepe, the reason I have an issue is I feel he is an inconsistent player but has his uses. And if you're not going to play to his strengths, it doesn't make sense for me to limit our best player, who, in my opinion, has been Saka for a long time. And, while he had a tough game, I'm not personally worried long term. I don't know what you guys feel. I do feel that it's come time to really make a decision, Saka or Pepe. I have not seen, or I've seen rather, Saka on the left enough for, in my opinion, not to like that partnership. I think it limits Tierney. I do think that potential duo is not ideal. It's actually part of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of recruiting a Pedro Neto, who I believe anyways long-term is best on the right wing, but having two lefties that are push and run types, I think they limit each other. It comes back to doing things in the same amount of zones. And so I think naturally, maybe the next place that we could highlight on a player is really Pepe, a player that, is divisive. We flirted around the subject. I may have my own subjective bias to the man. But, fundamentally, if I'm being fair, consistently, at least in the last couple of games, while being really quite horrible in build-up and in progression, he fundamentally gets into positions that score us goals. And when you're looking at a team that lack goals, I think the urge is to just put as many goal scorers on the pitch as possible. Is it that simple, Naif? Is Pepe, just somebody that, you ride the inconsistencies and build-up and technique for that added goal output? Is that added goal output even a guarantee? Which I'm not too sure that it is, but maybe I'm leading you into a question. Like, what's your opinion on, Pepe?
My opinion on Pepe is that he's best when playing on a counter-attacking team, and many people have said that. And it's very, very obvious when you watch our games. Whenever the game is at 0-0, he's very loose on the ball. He's not very technically secure. But then as soon as we go 1-0 up or 2-0 up, all of a sudden the opposition are playing much higher. They're trying to get that goal. All of a sudden, Pepe is able to dribble past 2-3 players, and he's able to put a ball in for Abba or Saka to be able to finish. That's why last season, so many times, the Arteta called on Pepe from the bench to come on, and more often than not, he was able to deliver. Like, for example, versus West Ham, we were losing 3-2. He brought in Pepe, and he put in a wonderful cross for Lacazette to make it 3-3. Versus Slavia Prague last season, in the first leg, it was 0-0. Once again, Arteta called for Pepe off the bench. And he scores a goal to make it 1-0. We eventually end up drawing the game anyways. But my point still stands about how Pepe is best. Like, I know everyone that considers him our 72 million pound signing shouldn't be limited to the bench, but unfortunately, that's just how that's where I see him best for us. Like, bring him on when there's 30 minutes left in the game, and we still 30 minutes left in the game, and we're behind, or we just need to hold on to a lead and counter, and that's where Pepe really excels at, because he thrives so much on open space, because he's one of our fastest players in the squad. So, yeah, and I'd like to comment that. Despite not contributing to any of the goals versus Burnley, I liked his performance there a lot more than the Norwich game, because very early on we went ahead, so naturally there was a lot more space to work with. And I think if it wasn't for the pitch problems that I mentioned earlier, I think Pepe would have had at least an assist or a goal all to his name, because he was really getting into very good positions, and he was putting. He put a very good ball into Abba, but the ball just stopped, and the Burnley player was able to intercept it. So hopefully, for example, the game next week against Spurs, I hope Pepe doesn't start unless it's the exact same team as the Burnley game, with Odegaard, Smith Rowe, and Saka all starting with him. I don't want to see him starting versus Spurs, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because again, last season in the game versus Spurs, he came on at halftime for Saka, who got cramps, and he set up the goal. He intercepted a loose long ball from Lloris, and then he put a wonderful pass for Lacazette, which he missed, but that was okay, because Sanchez ended up clotting him, and we won a penalty. So
I think. Look, I want to give everybody else a chance just to tie up on the Pepe. Unfortunately, I feel what sums up Pepe is, I have this gif of Gattuso with Olympiacos, the very famous, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And I consistently watch the games of Pepe, and I find myself repeating that gif over and over again. And I look at the big moments. I look at him releasing Oba, which there's no excuse. We're up 1-0. We're under the cosh. We need that goal. When you're on top, when you're a team that's inefficient, you need to make use of your chances. We see Chelsea and Spurs earlier today. A very cagey first half that I don't think that, Spurs were necessarily horrible. And I actually think they were quite good. And then when Chelsea go man for man and they actually turn on the pressure, they're able to capitalize on their good chances. But when we've got Pepe, who's bursting through the center in space, Oba's in space, and he underhits a ball, and we lose the chance. For me, those inconsistencies aren't once in a blue moon. They're all the time. And they're too consistent to not have a player who, while on his day struggled in Bukayo, consistently gets those decisions right. The biggest thing with Bukayo Saka is he makes good final third decisions. That's one of the biggest things that you have. And when you're looking at a front line that's inefficient, you need to maximize the players that make those good decisions more often than not. So for me, you facilitate the guy that does that the best, and that for me is Saka. I'm okay to move on, but I want to give a chance to Chris and Z. Do you guys have any last minute thoughts on Pepe, maybe as a whole, or in his involvement in this game?
For me, in our best team, I wouldn't start him. I've said that before. I think Emil on the left and Pepe on the right, and Saka on the right, I'd be much more comfortable with that. I think Pepe, I think Norwich was a good indication of when he's the man, what he does, and I think he has a decent game, but he wasn't great. And our setup versus Norwich was very much play through Pepe. We're gonna do everything for Pepe, and he did have 7 shots and stuff, and he did have an assist to the goal. But even then, there was a lot more that he could have done in the game, and I just think he's too ineffective in so much of the pitch, and he's only good or very good in a certain part of the pitch, and he's very inconsistent. And to be the man, I really don't think you can have that. And even with Saka, as Naif said, in his worst game probably ever for Arsenal, he's responsible for the set piece that we get the goal. So for me, I think the inconsistencies that come with having Pepe as your main man, I just really couldn't have that. And Saka just is better fundamentally and offers more of a variety to his game. If it's the Saka Pepe, really debate, to be honest, because I don't think either of them should start on the left. I think that should be Emil.
Yeah, I'm never a fan of our fan base constantly pitting players against each other. I just felt that it was another flashpoint, another moment where I want him to succeed. Make no mistake about it. I really do, because him succeeding means we succeed and we score more goals. But I'm just constantly seeing big moments in matches that could be pivotal. Make that 2-0 at that moment in the game. We're cruising the rest of the game instead of scrambling, allowing them back in the game, the press occurring, because we missed those chances. And I think they start to come back on top in the second half. Z, before I get on to that, stabilization, that's the last segment before we go into our final reviews. But Pepe, I want to give you a chance. Are we off here? Are we too critical? Or is there validity to that?
No, I don't think we're too, I don't think we're off here, because I feel like the criticism that Pepe gets, it's well deserved, because you know what, on the pitch, he does make some decisions where you end up scratching your head and you're like, why is he doing that? Like for example, a simple ball played to his left foot, he ends up taking an extra touch and he goes 2 yards wide, and then it kind of ruins every single attacking option on the pitch. And I feel like something like that, it's a massive detriment to the team. And so when I look at that, I don't think any of the criticism that he gets is undeserved. But what I would say is, obviously he does bring the kind of like goal scoring action in the team where I don't think someone like Saka or Emil Smith Rowe has. Like if he was 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, most likely 9 out of 10 times he would be the guy to score. But the fact is, everything else before that he is fundamentally poor at. So it's something that we might need to address in the summer. Really, I think we need to get in a winger that can actually do everything that Pepe does, but also be good in the build-up, be good technically on the ball as well, and someone that can actually end up being a 10 to 15 goal man on a consistent basis as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really fussed if Pepe gets dropped for the North London derby. However, I would like to see Saka, if he does play, over Pepe with Lacazette, because I feel like these two combine very well, and we saw last season how well they combine, and it's Laka coming on as a striker for Arsenal will add a lot more technical security that we kind of lose when Aubameyang starts up front. So
it's a tough one, because for me, I actually felt Oba was so well rounded in this game, and in this season, he's done a lot of Laka things. Like I've said to people, in terms of linking the play, coming deep, he's been a lot more technically secure this season.
Yeah,
which is crazy to me. But I think I kind of agree. In my opinion, I'm done. I've made that clear. I think there needs to be a Saka or Pepe decision. I don't think Pepe and Oba work in the same front line. I think they're two players that deserve freedom of movement. And if you're going to support one, you got to choose one player, in my opinion. I think there's a couple offensive, I'll probably just end my own opinion, offensive rules I want Mikel to abide by. If you have Aubameyang as your central striker, go for technical security in the back line. I want ESR, Odegaard, Saka, nothing else. If you're going to go with a Lacazette or a Balogun type of striker, I would like ESR, not Odegaard, in there. And I would also like Pepe and Martinelli as wing forwards to supplement somebody coming in to combine, to go and attack the space as you leave that open to come in. And then lastly, I don't think Oba and Pepe can play together, unfortunately. They're two players that, for me, are inconsistent in their overall game, but love freedom of movement and get you output. They're two players that do that, but are inconsistent in their overall play. I think it's a little harsh personally on Aubameyang, but I'm not blind to the fact that he's not the most technically secure player. And so for me, you can't have that freedom of movement in two players in the front line when we've got a team that's still a little bit broken, a team that still isn't the greatest in progression-wise. We can't afford that luxury right now. And so for me, that needs to be the rules of your front line, Mikel. Please abide by them, and we'll be fine. Get that balance, get two creatives and two runners in there, and, you apply those 4 rules, we'll be fine. I did want to end really quickly on one last segment before we get into, I guess, overall reviews, and that was, look, we were under the cosh, guys. Like, let's make no mistake about it. I don't want to paint a rosy picture where, first half I could say controlled. I don't agree with people saying that we weren't controlled. I thought the first half was good, but it did disintegrate. It did, in my opinion, from the 60-minute mark, really quite till after the, to the end, really. I felt that we were under pressure. And while I wasn't necessarily really worried about, conceding because of our 1v1 dual competency, mentally I was nail biting. I'm not going to lie. I was sitting there saying, can we hold on? Can we be resolute here? And it turns out we did. But I felt Ainsley and Lokonga did give a little bit of stability when the ball was bouncing around. There was a period before their substitution, and we did get ourselves on the ball a little bit more. But I still felt that the change in formation helped us a bit. I think I saw more of that 2-3-5 when they did come on together. And, I actually think, Ainsley had a very good role in cutting out and actually a very decent cameo. I think he struggled in the previous game, I'll be honest with you. But I think in this game, he helped give some bite back into the midfield. I think Thomas was fatiguing. People are worried about, Kieran, but, we had some subs, and I highlight this period only because while I don't know if they individually got us over the line, I think the fact that we could call on these type of players is the difference that we didn't lose this game. The fact that you could call on a Tavares to really replace a surging run of Kieran. We know that the quality is not the same, but, the profile and the thrust he provides in defensive aggression was there. Lokonga, Ainsley, when Partey was missing, I know it takes 2 players to really replace him, but at least we had people to call upon to replicate that dynamic. And I think that was the difference that, we took away those 3 points. I wanted to get all your guys' opinion. Do you agree with that assessment? Or do you think really it was just a case of us, look, Burnley are a tough team. They're a tough test. We just had to dig in. This can happen to, some of the best teams. Burnley, I just want to go for, memory's sake. We haven't won against Burnley since Wenger. And even then, Wenger struggled. So Burnley aren't an opponent that, we've had the greatest of success of over the past couple of years. Do you guys think it was just a case of let's get over our mental demons and be resolute, another clean sheet, move on, don't analyze? Or, was it a case of that floor raisers that many critiqued in the summer window actually helping us over the line? Chris, I'll go to you first. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both, because the character and mental toughness of the team was definitely tested in the second half. Because obviously, as you said, in the first half, we were in control with like 62% possession to the 38, and in the second half it was 50-50. So it was much closer in the second half than the first half, and it did test our mental capacity. I think Lokonga and Ainsley did come on and do well on their ground duels, and they kept us competitive because, as you said, Partey did tire, and having those options is beneficial. But I do think them getting the fresh legs in midfield and that their foot on the ball and having someone to rely on when Partey is not there, when Xhaka's red carded, and when El Neni's injured, having two other options to come in as a new pivot in the end of the game when you're playing one of the toughest away days in the Prem is positive, because without the signings, we wouldn't have had a Tavares to come on when Tierney came off, a Lokonga to come on when Partey came off, Tomiyasu, Ben White. So all these signings were very important in yesterday's win, which a lot of people have tried to downplay, or it's just Burnley. You shouldn't get happy when your team beats Burnley and all this stuff. But if we lost, or same old Arsenal, you can't win a tough away day. So I don't get why people try to have it both ways. But yeah, to go back to the question, I think the signings really, really helped us stay in this game, because without them, we don't win or maintain our result.
Yeah, Naif, I'll go to you, mate. First, what do you think about that? Are we on to something here? Is it a little bit of both? Is it one or the other, or a mixed mash of both?
No, I think it is a bit of both. Like I said earlier, I think this Burnley game is really going to be an exception to all the other away days, because I really don't think there's going to be any other team who doesn't water the pitch and deliberately make it harder for us to play out from the back, and basically just force us to play a route one football rather than pressing, just just to make the pitch completely dry. But also I don't think we win this game if we have Leno or Holding or Mari in the defense. These players that we brought in, White, Gabriel, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, they were brought in for not just so that they can improve our build-up play, which they definitely have and will continue to do so, but they're also brought in because they're very tough physically. And I know you like to bring this up a lot, George, about how Arteta not only likes his very secure players but also likes physical monsters, because in the Premier League you need your players to not only be good technically but also be very good physically. Yes, in order to compete against every single team in the league. So yeah, that's what I thought about it.
Yeah, so I guess Z, we'll just end off with you, mate. I mean, it's tough because I think when you see a game disintegrate into that, everyone has this notion you got to beat Burnley 2 or 3-0, but they never do that. We haven't done that for years. Even under Wenger, we didn't beat them 2 or 3-0. So I guess what was your thoughts on that second half and maybe that period where we may have rode our luck? Is that good or is that bad?
I think people are underestimating the level of performance that we had yesterday, and I think it kind of comes down to the fact that people maybe are expecting a bit too much from a team that has only played twice together. It's literally a brand new team that we're seeing, and it's kind of shocking to see the kind of takes that I've seen over on social media. But in to put some good perspective to it, I feel like, you know what, the team that ended the game yesterday still was still very equipped to challenge Burnley for the rest of the game, and we brought the players that we brought in on as subs in Tavares, Lokonga, and Ainsley were all athletically amazing to even compete against Burnley, and which, if we compare to last season, I think those players wouldn't even been there. So it's a nice change to have, and to be fair, just having those kind of players just allowed us to ease the pressure off a little bit. When someone like Ainsley came on, the reason why I mentioned that Ainsley yesterday, and I said he had a really nice cameo, is not because he came on and he did amazing things on the ball. He came on and he just eased the pressure off us in midfield.
I agree. Off the ball, he provided that thrust that Thomas did.
Sometimes we'd say someone like Ainsley is a bit too relaxed, but in games like this,
he was switched on.
You need him to be like that, and that's why I was really, really impressed with him. And you know what, if he can come on in games and give us that kind of same effect, it takes us a long way. Because last season we had to bring on someone like Danny Ceballos or Mohamed El Neni in midfield, and I can't lie, they didn't really make much of a change in the team, and this is what we need. We need our subs to be game changers, and subs that can also be a part of the starting 11, and that's what we say. The signings that we made this season are players that that raise the level of the team, and we can only go far from here. To be fair, I feel like what we're in a good way. We're in a good way. Let's not let people undermine where we are. Burnley is not an easy place to go, and regardless of if other teams go to Burnley and Turf Moor and beat them 3-0 or 4-0, Burnley players whenever they play Arsenal, they play the extra 125% they have in their body all the time. It's just what it is. Stoke City used to do that as well. So I feel like we did very well and we got the win. Now let's just move on and focus on the Spurs game because I feel like that's going to be the big one.
Yeah, mate, I think that's a perfect tie-up. I think we're going to wrap it up soon. I'll give everyone a chance to do their final thoughts. Chris, you got anything last burning things to add?
Yeah, quickly, said this on Twitter, but I think we had our positives were Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, Ben White aerially, Odegaard in that pivot type position, and I think the character was a positive. How resolute we were, the fact that we were able to go over the line with a goal, our subs, and negatives for me were kind of Saka's performance, our technical security across the board, and just that we didn't get more goals because we had a chance to. But overall, I think we were very inefficient, but we were very strong and resolute to continue in the game. And it's positive that last week Norwich was completely different to the Burnley game in the sense that Norwich we get like 30 shots, dominate, and we should have scored 5, 6. But the Burnley game looked more of a contest because of the second half. But yeah, it's good to see two sides of a coin. Although we've seen everything you could have seen from a team in the season so far in our first 5. But yeah, I think it's positive that now we're 2 wins on the bounce. We gained a bit of form. Hope we can win against Wimbledon, 3 games in a row, and then we take that into the North London derby.
Absolutely, mate. I couldn't have said it better myself. So, Naif, do you have any last minute thoughts wrapping up in terms of your thoughts on Burnley?
Yeah, like I said before, I think this game is really unique. I don't think we're going to go visit any team that's going to try and force us to play balls along the way that Burnley did. Usually, the teams like to press us into playing long, but Burnley did it in a complete. But instead of pressing, they did press, but their main thing was completely different. So yeah, I think this in a game like this, you should just be happy to take the win, no matter how you do it. I do think that the scoreline could have been more had we just had our attackers just been a little bit more efficient, which I said before. I do understand why they weren't able to hit their passes normally, but I still think that at least one of them should have hit a good pass and made it a lot more comfortable for us to win the game. Because honestly, like you said, I agree with you that I never really felt threatened by Burnley, but just in the back of my head, because I know Arsenal, they usually cripple mentally, and usually we'd have someone like Leno who would capitulate under or the smallest amount of pressure. So yeah, like you said, I never felt threatened, but also that didn't stop me from worrying when watching the game.
Absolutely. No, I was in the same boat, mate. Z, last thoughts, mate. Birthday boy, do you have any last minute of wisdom to impart on the listeners and us here on Burnley? What are your last minute thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm just really happy with the win. I'm just really happy that that win allowed me to have a good weekend. That was really important for me, and just to just relaxingly watch the Spurs and Chelsea game, and I couldn't really care less about the result really. So that was the greatest thing of the weekend. But I'm just now just looking forward to the next upcoming games. I'm sure Chris and a few others will be joining and going to the Wimbledon game, and that'll be really nice to see the youth play. And then the Spurs game next week. I'm just pumped up really. looking forward to see how we fare, and then afterwards, we'll see where we are.
Absolutely, mate. You know what? Look, I think maybe to wrap up, I think this game showed a lot of maybe what we didn't want to see, but were very valuable lessons in terms of, can this defense be resolute against a 4-4-2 press? Can this defense be good on defensive set pieces? Something that, I don't think a lot of people could say. Could Ben White cope with aerial pressure? Yes, he could. Against arguably one of the best aerial pressures, in the league. And so there were a lot of, things that were answered that we didn't know, in my opinion, from this game. But then some of the same problems that cropped up that we do know that we can work on. And, I think there's a couple little issues here. I know people don't want to hear it. We miss Xhaka's control out of possession. I think this is a big problem for our progression, and I'll kind of whisper it because I know it's not the most, thing that people want to see. But this team needs him out of possession and in possession. I think a part of this reason for these inconsistencies is you need that extra partner in crime that can help you when things aren't going your way. I do hope we see Bukayo back in his more favored position. I think that was an issue for a struggle, but it's something to improve on. This kid's young; he's 19. He's been killing it for us every match since he's come in, so he's due an off day. I think fundamentally we just had another win, another clean sheet. I think that's important. New defensive units, 2 clean sheets on the bounce. That's huge for the confidence of this team, and psychologically, I think we killed a lot of demons. Burnley were representative of everything that Arsenal were weak against for decades. And I just was nice to fight back and, fight back pretty dirty. And, we won that way. I don't need to win beautifully every time. So, yeah, I was very happy about this. And I think I'll just end it there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can follow us up at BoP Footy or on the YouTube at Ball Over Passion. You can see all the boys here on their name tags, at Pure CKK for Chris. Naif, thanks for joining, mate. You can follow him at Naif_A55AF. And of course, the birthday boy, we wish him a very happy birthday at PrivArsenal_Z is on Twitter. But thank you guys for joining us.
BoP and the one Willow on Twitter.
Hey, thank you. Took the words out of my mouth. I'm not that demented yet. But thanks, guys, for joining us. And we look forward to looking at Wimbledon and the preview, and that'll be out soon. So this will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the end of the day, and for YouTube for those of you listening on Spotify tomorrow. So thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.